right. Are we good? Are we good? We getting levels? I think we're getting levels. Okay. So let's start this off. Welcome everyone to the storytelling workshop where we explore and celebrate characters, stories, creativity, design, art, awesomeness. Okay. Well, today we're going to finish up a story that we started a couple days ago. And this particular story is starring Stuffy, who is a character that I created years and years ago. And he's very simple. He doesn't even have hands. He's a scarecrow. And the purpose for this simple character is to teach story, to make a fun, simple character that makes storytelling accessible to everyone, makes it possible for anyone that would want to learn story to believe that they can do it, because he's just a step ahead of a stick character, which is effective because we can see what he is really quickly. And yeah, so anyway, in this particular story, this little comic is going to be going into a bigger book. And that book has a theme, as does any movie, as does any, regular novel. And so this is going to be in a book that has the theme of art is war. And that idea is supposed to be a bit of a hook, because you have a character who's very simple, has been a children's book character, and then you have him in a book that's called Art is War. What does that mean? And so in this, Stuffy will be very creative. He's going to use his imagination. He's going to see the struggles of creating. And it's supposed to invite anyone that has ever created anything in on the idea that art, though it looks fun all the time, everyone says, "Oh, it's really fun. Oh, that's amazing what you do. You must have a blast." But to all those people that make those comments, one who is creative would ask, well, why haven't you continued on your art journey? And that's because it's not easy. It's not easy when things don't go right. And so in this book, we're going to be highlighting all the challenges, all the conflicts that come from creating something. And I thought that that is perfect, because good stories have conflict. There's always something that our character wants, but then there's an obstacle in the way. And we get to play with those elements in order to show growth of character and to make it interesting, make it surprising. And I've said it before, but when you think in terms of story, an easy way to access a good story is think of a good joke. There's the expectation, and then how do we break the expectation in a fun, entertaining, unexpected way, or in case of like a horror movie, in a terrifying way. But in this particular story, Stuffy is creating, and he's sculpting, and he's trying to get into the mindset of Michelangelo, the great Renaissance sculptor and painter. And there's a quote, I'm going to butcher it, but there's a quote, something to the effect of Michelangelo didn't believe that he was just a sculptor. He believed that God had already put a beautiful form in the marble or on the wall. It was already there. He was just showing up to reveal it, and that God would guide his hand, and he looked at it like it was effortless. And that's a very romantic, beautiful thing. But Michelangelo is in rare territory, and most creative human beings struggle, and they don't feel like they just have to show up. They feel like they have to learn a lot of things. And so the funny conflict in this is that Stuffy starts off here. He's going to be like Michelangelo. He has all these high expectations, and those expectations are not met. I'm just going to hold on. And so those expectations are not met as he goes through. Right in the beginning of the story, he experiences conflict. And so we'll have the quote here, and he's happily, about to chisel away, and he's got his hammer out, and he's got his chunk of marble. First thing he does, we do a little close up of his mallet hitting the top of his spike. Dang it. Expectations not met. And then he starts struggling. And then he quickly shifts, though. So in this, we reveal that Stuffy's sculpture is like half destroyed. But something that we've always reinforced with Stuffy's character is that he's like unbridled creativity and positivity. He's always creating, he's always adding to. So because of his character and how he is, maybe I'll add more clay. So he's going to add more clay, and then some wood, and then he's going to add all these elements, and then find by the end here, we'll just, let's think, let's just generate some possible materials. So add clay, add wood, add metal, and then maybe this is where we have like a close-up of like this hodgepodgey thing. Arms crossed. What is Stuffy thinking? So in this, his emotion is very, and this is good because we can break expectation once again. So conflict, he's not Michelangelo. So he starts adding stuff, and then we have this art piece in front of him. We don't know what he's thinking. We assume because he's sitting in this position that he's not necessarily happy because of everything that just happened before. But that pose can also just be deep in thought. And I like this because this sets up that the audience that's reading the comic assumes, and we're going to make sure it's incorrectly, they assume he's mad. This is a jumbled up mess now. Clearly, his original goal of being Michelangelo is not met. So I'm just going to make a note. And as mentioned before in previous lives, I'm just making notes so that I can get back to this story and understand absolutely everything that is happening in it. At this stage when I'm storyboarding, and this is like the first pass of the storyboards, usually there's cleanup. Back in the olden days, I don't know if they do it like this anymore, but they would have one artist come through, get the idea, and then sometimes it wouldn't even be the same person. I even did a storyboard cleanup once, and you'd come through and you just clean up each drawing and make sure that it makes sense. But as we're going through, we're just trying to capture the general idea and then come back. Luckily for me, this is being recorded. I'm going to come back to this recording, assess the entire story, and then be able to clean it up. So now he's looking at something in front of him, and then we'll just make sure that that's kind of highlighted so we know. We are 100% certain that whatever Stuffy made is not something that is not Michelangelo's David. It's some contraption, and we believe he's not happy about that. But we can have that expectation broken right here. Stuffy's almost, maybe he even sheds a tear. And the note is, it's beautiful, ... And we're looking at it and we're like, that's not beautiful. What are you talking about, Stuffy? But the idea as I work this, and this was not premeditated, I'm getting inspired as I'm working my little story. What would be a really good payoff if we set up yet again, here's our expectation, that's not good. He's mad. Wait a minute. He's so happy that he's shedding a tear and he believes that that's beautiful? That's not beautiful. That's like a hodgepodge of junk. But as I was thinking of this, there are amazing artists that make shadow art out of a collection of different items, wood, pieces, nails, screws. I'm sure you guys have, some of you have seen it, and you look at it and you're like, that just looks like junk. And they have like old toys and whatever. But then once you shine light through it, it casts like this amazing shadow. And so that would be really cool if, and I don't know what of yet, and maybe you guys have some suggestions. So now we're going to go to an extreme wide, because we really need to see what the shadow is. Or not even yet. I mean, it can be, so once again, I have the general idea of what the payoff could be. Well, I have the basic idea that it's going to be something that it hits the heart, right? Because he's getting teary-eyed. And so once we see, maybe there's a light. Well, there would have to be. And so there's a light being generated behind him that would cast a shadow on the wall. And right now I just like did the general like shadow of what Stuffy would be. But as we get into this, we know we need that silhouette, and this comes back to character design, comes back to good storytelling. We need that silhouette to be what? We go back to Stuffy's design in general, which I go back to the acronym kiss, but we're gonna modify it. Normally kiss is keep it simple, stupid. We're gonna keep it simple, stuffy. We want that silhouette of whatever this sculpture is to be easily identifiable, readable. And that's something that they're always stressing in animation, in character design, and I'm stressing it here as well, is that you want at first glance that silhouette of that character or that thing or that art piece to be easily understood. We want people to connect. That's why we create stories. We want them to connect and to understand and to relate. This is why the idea of nostalgia is so important. If I'm at the store, for instance, and I see a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, well, I was a kid. I believe, I think I was 5 when the cartoon first came out. So I get nostalgic. I instantly recognize that Ninja Turtle. And they did something very clever. Marketing teams started putting out the old designs. So what I recognize, I relate, I want to buy that for my son because now he's that age. It's very smart. Same thing goes for story. We want to make things understandable. Ironic because we have to start with just capturing an idea. And I always stress, and this might be counter to what other people teach or instruct, but the important thing in the first pass is get it, capture it any way you can. Turn on a camera, do a little drawing that you know what it is. Then go back and add polish. Storytelling, good art, good design. It's about iterations. It's about doing it in passes. When I was in school, we used a software program that's still out there today. It's called Maya. And Maya would work best when we were rendering out in passes. So you wouldn't just, all right, I'm going to click and then it's going to render out the video and it's done. We would do it in passes because you'd have lighting and texture. And so you would have what is called like an occlusion pass. You'd have a texture pass, a bump, and all these things so that you could have ultimate control in quality as you add these things. Well, I want to be able to reset the occlusion after I've already created this image. Well, you can't do that if you just do it all at once. And it's really hard to have perspective. So in this, we know that we're going to keep it messy in the beginning, and then we're going to move the idea into the best place possible. Now, again, coming back to this frame, if we know that now the payoff of this thing is it's going to cast a silhouette, we would need to have a light source, right? Well, this is where we as storytellers have the awesome gift of being able to have a really good idea come to us as we're working it. So then we can go back here and add a light. It'd be like a big ring light like I have over here. And maybe, I love this, because as we're working it, as we're setting it up, we can have a light source behind him and maybe even dialogue that reinforces and kind of re-navigates the person's mind as to what motivates this light. Stuffy can have dialogue that says, this is a good idea. this is a good idea. So also reinforcing his original idea. This is a good idea. He's following his instincts in creating something. And so he's super excited about it. We know that that's going to be coming into play later for a completely different reason. And it has nothing to do with his original idea, but it works twofold, where he is excited about what he's starting with, but then it's going to magically transform as we get down to here. So right now, let's see. We've got, he has this hodgepodge thing. We'll have a close-up shot of him adding maybe like a metal pipe, something like that. What would be an easy, again, going back to identifiable, maybe just have it be like a, just so we know. And we'll add a little note. Stuffy slams it down. He's hard at work. He's making sounds. And just like when I'm in total creative mode out in my workshop, bam, big sound effect. So that'll be a close-up, and then we have the reveal. Looks like he's not happy, but he is. He's speechless. It's beautiful. And then we'll have, in this frame, we see that it's casting a shadow, but we don't know what the shadow is. And so then right here, we can go from behind Stuffy. He's still looking at it. And then what would be something that is beautiful, but not beautiful in our expected way? Again, we're trying to pleasantly surprise the audience. And we have all these opportunities if our intention is in that. All too often, we'll hear a story or hear someone say something and there's no payoff. Maybe we see the end of the story right from the beginning. We're like, yeah, I knew that was going to happen. That falls flat. My expectations were met. Thank you. Now I can go on and try to find something else that surprises me and is unexpected. So let's use our creative minds. He's working on something that's, and we're referencing Michelangelo. Michelangelo's David is a naked, let's get down to it. It's a naked dude with big hands. And Stuffy doesn't even have hands. He's got stumps. And he's a little bit of a different character. So his idea of beauty is different. And though he respects Michelangelo's work, he's a great artist, I want to be like him. Stuffy's not like him. So we have to do something that reinforces Stuffy and his taste. So if he's a character who doesn't have hands, his idea of beauty is a little bit different, he's got to see something that moves him. And we've also had in other stories that Stuffy's been in, he's like me. This is where we line up 100%. We're not the exact same character, but we line up in pop culture references. I just mentioned Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I think tying it into something that's kind of pop culture oriented just feels right. It's movies, filmmaking. What would be instantly something that is beautiful, nostalgic, and also very, very unexpected. The first thing that popped on my mind, and it also sounds funny. This goes back into something that Jerry Seinfeld talked about, where this is where he actually starts in his jokes, is just the payoff, because he's going in his jokes, he's usually going extremely simple. And so for this, it would be awesome and almost impossible for it to happen, but it would be a miracle and very funny if it was David Hasselhoff was the shadow. And so, I, I don't know why that came, but again, I like I like surprising myself. And it reminds me of, yes, this is why it works. This is so funny. The more you trust the funny side, the unexpected side, your mind is going to fill in the blanks at times, and you're gonna be like, I don't know, that's a little too. No, don't second guess yourself. Stuffy makes this hodgepodge whatever. It casts a shadow on the wall, and it ends up being Knight Rider's own Michael Knight, David Hasselhoff. And this is great too, because as I was thinking about that, it reminds me of all those stories where people would see like they'd see Jesus and a piece of toast, and it's all on the eye of the beholder, and people would be like, "Oh, that's Mary, and she's, you know, in my cereal or whatever," and we'll have a shadow that indeed looks like David Hasselhoff. We're going to make that clear that we see that that's what he sees. But it could also be a little bit of a stretch, and that would be funny, where where now he sees David Hasselhoff, we get what he sees. It's definitely either we can go two ways there. We can make it very recognizable to us as well. We're like, how is that thing with light shining through David Hasselhoff? That's a miracle. Or we can kind of make it even funnier that we're like, how are you pulling that out of it? But it doesn't matter, because as long as he's happy with it, he's excited, he's going to make another piece. So good for him. He made a David Hasselhoff sculpture, light sculpture. Very cool. Then we have the final payoff, because we've had a couple ups and downs. We've had conflict, we've had resolution, and now what is the final thought? Stuffy's positive. He made a David Hasselhoff sculpture unbeknownst to him. Now he's going to try to make a kit. Hasselhoff, Michael Knight's car. That's going to be his next piece. On to the next one. And so then we can have him super happy. Again, make it obvious. next step. Kit. All right. So now we have enough here for a fun comic that has ups and downs, unexpected payoffs, conflict. I would say the one thing to tighten it up, that once I revisit this story, coming back to it and really trying to reinforce the entire story itself, is somehow have a hook, a visual image that's really powerful and strong. So we can do that, I think, with this, with the lighting, because he's backlit. It can be very cinematic, powerful image of, like, maybe even reinforce Stuffy. He, in his mind, you know, he can be like, even like a blacksmith who's going to forge this awesome Michelangelo piece, and he's super stoked about it, and have the lighting reinforce that as well. So that would be a good visual hook to get people who are like, oh, what is this? What is this comic? What is this particular comic about? I need to know. And then we can like make these a little bit more simple, stating this was what was in his head. This is a great idea. And then tink, oh. And then we go into normal drawings, and that can reinforce all of this. Yeah, so we would have to make sure that our opening image is a good visual hook so that people would want to read the story, that we're ending the story on. They don't all have to end on a good note, but I think with Stuffy, like, let's try to aim for at least 80% where he's happy, and so that people will want to come back because they're getting good stories that like uplift them. That's kind of the whole point of his character. So then it ends on a good note. He's stoked about his next piece. And though the theme of the book is art is war, he's a soldier. Stuffy. And that instantly right there, I get excited because I'm like, the next creation should be him pretending to be a soldier. So I think on the next round, we're going to play with that and think of art in terms of imagination. We've had in this particular story, we've had Stuffy creating a sculpture, and it turns into a light sculpture. And then in the next one, it'd be kind of cool if he was playing with like toy soldiers. And we can go into a whole bunch of ideas right there, but having that just as the starting point and being like, that's a good place to stop for today. So once we get back to it, we know we have an image to start with. And our brain in that time will we'll go to bed. And then the subconscious will start filling in the blanks of what that story could be. And I'll see you guys next time. Thanks again for stopping in. And if you have any comments, I'll get over here and get to them. But we'll take a little time here at the end just to settle down and then sign off. Thanks again.